In the world of modern megachurches, few names evoke as much admiration and controversy as Stephen Furtick, the founder and lead pastor of Elevation Church. Known for his magnetic preaching style, motivational messages, and widespread social media presence, Furtick has cultivated a following of millions across the globe. However, behind the polished image and viral sermons lies a story of practices, statements, and financial dealings that critics argue stretch the boundaries of truth and integrity. Over the years, questions about transparency, theological accuracy, and ethical conduct have emerged, leaving many to wonder, is the man inspiring millions also misleading them? Elevation Church, based in Charlotte, North Carolina, has grown from a small congregation into a multi-campus megachurch with thousands attending weekly services, both in person and online. Furtick's charismatic style, peppered with personal anecdotes, humor, and relatable storytelling, has been a key factor in this expansion. His messages often emphasize empowerment, personal growth, and the promise of prosperity, resonating strongly with a generation seeking hope and guidance in a turbulent world. Yet critics argue that the simplicity of his messages can sometimes blur the lines between inspiration and misrepresentation, leaving congregants vulnerable to exaggerated claims or half-truths. Financial transparency has been one of the most persistent points of contention surrounding Furtick and Elevation Church. The pastor's lifestyle, ranging from luxurious homes to high-profile vacations, has been scrutinized in light of the church's status as a tax-exempt organization funded largely by donations from members. While Furtick insists that all resources are used to further the church's mission, investigative reports and watchdog organizations have raised questions about the proportionality of spending on personal versus church-related endeavors. For critics, this financial opacity reinforces a pattern of selective disclosure that borders on deception, making it difficult for donors to assess whether their contributions are being used in alignment with stated purposes. Another layer of controversy surrounds the theological positions Furtick promotes in his sermons and publications. His messages often prioritize practical life lessons over strict adherence to biblical doctrine, which some theologians argue can lead to a dilution of scriptural truths. For example, the prosperity gospel themes, frequently highlighted in his teachings, promise material blessings as a reward for faith, an idea widely debated and criticized within broader Christian circles. While supporters view this as encouragement to pursue life with optimism and confidence, detractors argue that it misrepresents Scripture, creating expectations that may not align with the foundational principles of humility, service, and sacrificial love central to the faith. The controversies are not limited to finances or theology. They extend into the very way Elevation Church markets itself and communicates with followers. Social media campaigns, motivational videos, and viral sermons are meticulously crafted to present Furtick as both relatable and aspirational. While marketing is a standard practice in any organization, the church's extensive use of personal storytelling and curated imagery raises questions about authenticity. Observers note that certain narratives, when repeated widely, can foster a perception that goes beyond reality, creating a carefully constructed persona that may differ from the everyday complexities of pastoral life. Criticism has also emerged regarding leadership practices within the church. Former employees and volunteers have occasionally spoken out about workplace environments where dissent or questioning of decisions was discouraged. Allegations include pressuring staff to conform to particular narratives, managing public perception with strategic messaging, and prioritizing the church's public image over individual concerns. While these claims are difficult to verify comprehensively, their consistency across multiple accounts suggests patterns that merit careful attention. For many observers, the combination of charismatic leadership, aggressive growth strategies, and media-savvy presentation blurs the line between spiritual guidance and personal branding. Supporters of Furtick, however, argue that much of the criticism is rooted in misunderstanding or jealousy. They point to the tangible positive outcomes of his ministry, charitable initiatives, community programs, and the spiritual growth of thousands who find hope and purpose through Elevation Church. From food drives to outreach programs, the church has undeniably made a social impact, demonstrating that large-scale ministry can create meaningful change. Yet, even among supporters, there is a recognition that accountability and transparency are essential to maintaining trust, particularly when influence extends so widely and the stakes, spiritual, emotional, and financial, are so high. Media coverage of Furtick has often amplified these debates. Journalists and commentators highlight both his ability to inspire and the ethical questions surrounding his ministry. Interviews, podcasts, and investigative pieces dissect sermons, examine tax filings, and analyze public statements, fueling a national conversation about the responsibilities of megachurch leaders. The scrutiny is intensified by the fact that Furtick's influence extends well beyond Charlotte. His books, conferences, and social media presence reach millions worldwide, meaning that any misrepresentation has the potential to affect lives on a global scale. Beyond the specifics of finance and doctrine, Furtick's situation reflects a broader cultural phenomenon: the rise of celebrity pastors who blend entertainment, motivation, and religion. This convergence of ministry and media creates unique pressures and incentives, where success is measured not only in spiritual outcomes, but in attendance numbers, social media engagement, and book sales. Critics argue that this environment can incentivize exaggeration, oversimplification, and strategic omission, forms of deception that may not always be intentional but are nonetheless impactful. The discussion around Stephen Furtick raises fundamental questions about faith, influence, and responsibility. At what point does inspiration become misrepresentation? How should religious leaders balance the need to communicate effectively with the obligation to remain transparent and truthful? And, most importantly, how can congregants discern authentic guidance from carefully packaged messaging? These are not merely abstract concerns. They directly affect the spiritual, emotional, and financial well-being of millions who look to figures like Furtick for direction. In conclusion, Stephen Furtick's rise to prominence illustrates both the potential and the peril of modern megachurch leadership. His charisma, motivational skills, and organizational acumen have built a thriving ministry that touches lives across the globe. Yet, the controversies surrounding financial transparency, theological interpretation, marketing strategies, and leadership practices reveal patterns that many view as forms of deception. Whether one sees Furtick primarily as a gifted pastor or a masterful self-promoter, the debates around his methods serve as a cautionary tale about the complexities of faith in the age of celebrity, media, and widespread influence. Congregants, critics, and observers alike are left to navigate the blurred lines between inspiration and illusion, and the conversation about accountability in religious leadership continues to unfold. While much of the focus on Stephen Furtick revolves around his sermons and public persona, it is also important to examine the broader culture that surrounds Elevation Church. The church's rapid expansion, now boasting multiple campuses across the United States and a massive online following, has created a powerful ecosystem that thrives on both inspiration and influence. The integration of professional media production, motivational storytelling, and highly polished messaging has transformed Furtick from a local pastor into a global brand. For many followers, this combination of faith and media creates an uplifting and engaging experience. However, critics argue that the line between genuine spiritual guidance and performative entertainment can become dangerously thin. Another key area of scrutiny lies in the church's financial and resource allocation strategies. Elevation Church has been praised for large-scale charitable efforts, from food drives to local community initiatives, yet these programs are often presented alongside highly visible personal expenditures by leadership. Critics contend that this juxtaposition can create a sense of dissonance, raising questions about priorities and accountability. The debate is further complicated by the tax-exempt status of churches, which limits public access to detailed financial reporting. While Furtick and his supporters emphasize the positive impact of donations on community outreach, skeptics argue that transparency is essential to avoid the appearance or reality of financial